On today's show, the Spurs make franchise history with a 5-0 start behind another monster game from Victor Wembanyama, and Rollinsanity as Ryan Rollins leads the Bucks past the Warriors without Giannis. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every single night. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And joining me is my partner in crime, the host of Locked On Heat, David Ramil. David, did you have fun getting Wemby'd last night?
I've seen the future of the NBA, man. It's 7'4" in French. I'm not a big fan right now. I'm very disappointed.
Oh, man, the Wemby domination tour just continues as the Spurs take care of business against the Miami Heat, a franchise career franchise, whatever, what am I saying? Start in franchise history, best start in franchise history ever, 5-0. Surprisingly, first time ever for the Spurs in franchise history. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get to our other games from the slate. In this one, a lot to cover in this great slate of NBA action as the Bucks stun the Warriors without Giannis. Weird kind of result there. Rollinsanity going on as Ryan Rollins is playing some of the best basketball of his career. Had a couple other games on our slate to get to. We got so much action to talk about here in today's episode. First, we want to thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen each and every day. And also want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And where we're going to get started, much to the chagrin of David, is we're going to talk about the Spurs and Victor Wembanyama's monster game. Let's throw it out to the host of Locked On Spurs for more on this one before we get David's side, the loser side of things here.
First time ever in franchise history, your San Antonio Spurs are 5-0. Hey, this is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs. Here to react basically to history being made in San Antonio. The Spurs defeated the Miami Heat 107-101 for 5 straight games in a row. 5-0 to start the season. I mean, my goodness, this is something that Tim Duncan could not do. The Big Three couldn't do. LaMarcus, DeMar. Yeah, it was the Wemby era where it finally happened. Look, you can say everything you can say about the numbers. You know, Wemby putting up a phenomenal performance again, double-figure scoring, just a beast on the boards. Castle making timely 3 shots towards the end. But what this really proves is this team is learning how to win. Look, they faced one of their, a good test tonight versus Miami, a team that was not backing down and even was clawing to the bitter end in the fourth quarter, even took the lead in the fourth quarter. And that is where I think this team separated itself as far as showing maturity. Miami actually took the lead from San Antonio in the fourth period, but the Spurs made timely plays, key shots, the right decisions, the right defensive plays. Kudos to Mitch Johnson as well. Overall, this win signals that this team is maturing, they're understanding how to win, and is translated into wins.
David's over here shaking his head. He's just frustrated. Nobody likes getting Wemby'd. All right, look, this was a game that the Spurs were ahead by a pretty wide margin. And then Miami reels off this insane run to get back into things at the top of the fourth quarter. And then, like Jeff was talking about, right, this very young Spurs team still missing some very key contributors in De'Aaron Fox and Luke Cornett and Jeremy Sohan were able to find a way to be able to close this thing out. And they did it with their defense, man, at the end of the game. That 4-minute stretch to close things out, only allowing 6 points over those 4 minutes by Miami at the end of this one. Wemby was on another level, and it didn't even feel like he had like a great game by his usual standards.
No, it was a matchup I was looking forward to because you've got the teams with the top 2-point differential so far. Miami is surprising 3-1 with the number 1 offense in the league. Their fast pace, just blowing teams out, looking incredible, getting contributions all up and down. And then they go up against Wembanyama. And The obstacle is so real and so difficult to overcome that a team that had looked so good offensively was made to look rather pedestrian. To their credit, they were still playing a close game, and they got some nice performances from Bam Adebayo and Andrew Wiggins and Simone Fontecchio, who has been a revelation in Miami. And other than that, though, it was just this constant obstacle standing in the way where a team that has looked so good in attacking the paint like Miami has was just getting nothing at the rim, nothing in the restricted area whatsoever, because Wembanyama was always there. And if not altering shots or blocking shots directly, forcing turnovers because all of a sudden you've got this guy standing in your way that you didn't expect or didn't see coming, and you're forced to spray out to a three-point shooter. And credit to guys like Stephon Castle or Devin Vassell, who were just there to anticipate these passes and were able to break them up, initiate fast break opportunities of their own. So the Spurs are legit. They look like a really good team. And again, missing key contributors. What a dangerous team this group has been so far, and off to, as Jeff said, a historic 5-0 start.
You know, I don't like admitting it because of the I-10 rivalry between Houston and San Antonio, but like the Spurs team is fun. Like they're young, they're exciting. They're very raw, but you also, and I know Jeff was giving credit to new Spurs head coach Mitch Johnson, who is now the official full-time head coach after the whole interim situation last year. But I also know that like Sean Sweeney has played a big part in the Spurs defense, you know, being brought over from Dallas as a new assistant head coach or assistant coach, I apologize, for this team this season. And so just you see the makings, right? Obviously Wemby himself is like, it's Wemby, but like even just the aggressiveness and the desire to want to play defense at a high level from some of the other younger guys, right? Obviously Steph Castle is a guy who came in with a defensive aptitude, but you see it out of guys like Devin Vassell. You're seeing it out of guys like Keldon Johnson, like Dylan Harper, right? Where they're still very young, they're raw at times, they're going to make some mistakes and stuff, but they're playing hard. They're bought into what the Spurs are trying to do defensively as a team. And the fact that they're able to look this good this soon, I know it's just 5 games in, but like even the fact that Wemby had this monster game that he was able to put together with, my goodness, this box score just feels like something out of 2K. 27 points, 18 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 blocks. Granted, the efficiency wasn't great, just 10 of 23 shooting overall, but like, my good, at what point, David, like, I know that we've had like absurd dominant players in the past, but like, what even is the counter to Wemby? How do you counter a Wemby? Is there a kryptonite for a Wemby? Or is the NBA just going to be screwed for the next 10 years or so as this guy ascends to potential GOAT status?
It feels that way. It really does. Like, I think he's only going to continue to get better. You and I were talking even before starting recording. He's this good this early in his career, and he's that young. And I just don't see what the possible way of challenging him is. Like, what do you do if you put look? Miami tried. They switched a number of different players onto him. I think Andrew Wiggins tried to defend him. Davion Mitchell tried to defend him as a pretty stout guard. Bam Adebayo, with his defensive versatility, one of the best defenders in the league for the last 8 seasons, really didn't have much of an answer for him. So I don't know that there is one. I don't know what you can do. It's just sending multiple players to try and defend him, a combination of size and strength and quickness to maybe disrupt his dribble a little bit. I think that might be the best tactic. We saw Davion at least use his stout strength to kind of hold up Wemby to a certain degree, and maybe if he sent a double at just the right time. But given Wembanyama's skill set, as you said, 6 assists, just able to dish it right out to somebody because he can just see over everybody. He's towering over the other defender out there. So it's a really impossible matchup. And I just don't know that there is a solution to what he can bring to the court. And I've been critical of him because I think he was anointed a little bit too quickly. I have to say he's there now. Like I maybe everybody was able to see something I hadn't seen, but I think he's there. Like the way he started this season, being as dominant and as good, and he has been better than he was last year when everybody already proclaimed him as one of the top players in the league. He's been even better. I think now is when he's legitimately one of the best players in the league, if not the best player.
It was those damn monks, man. They unlocked him. Most Spurs thing to ever happen. Go training with monks in the offseason. A bit of a consolation prize for Miami Heat fans, though, was that gnarly poster that Bam Adebayo had on Wemby. That's like, you're like, here, at least you tried kind of thing. But all right, coming up, the Bucks stunning the Warriors and get the win without Giannis, led by Ryan Rollins. Some Rollinsanity, if you will. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, but every day, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the very next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking about player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want to get your hands on. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the Bag Drop. Dash Pass members only get 50% off up to $10 the next day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 and older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. And continuing on here at Locked On NBA Game Night, let's get to our next game of our 4-game slate, where the Bucks stun the Warriors with no Giannis Antetokounmpo, a late scratch to this game. They were led by one Ryan Rollins, who is on an absolute tear, a Rollinsanity tear, if you will. Let's throw it out to Locked On Warriors for more on what happened in this one.
The way you described this game, the one that got away, in a lot of different avenues. Let's start off with, I guess, the player of the game, Ryan Rollins, literally the one that got away. The Warriors let him walk before he even had a chance to really show what he was made of. Still a very young player. Toledo, second-round draft pick years ago, and goes for 32, a career high today. No Giannis Antetokounmpo on the floor. So that's another reason why it's a game that got away. Literally scratched before the game, and the Warriors still aren't able to win. Playing Al Horford, playing Jimmy Butler, playing Draymond Green, Steph Curry, everyone available. The Warriors still not able to get it done. 120-110, the final score. The Bucks hit 19 threes to the Warriors 13. That's a big difference. Golden State turned it over 22 times compared to the Bucks 16. That is a big difference. Milwaukee's 4-1. The Warriors are 4-2. Check out the live postgame show. It's Mike Loganoff, myself, Matt Kolsky. Hit that subscribe. We're going live potentially right now, or we already went live, so check us out.
All right, David. This was, Ryan Rollins is on an absolute tear. His start to a season has been incredible. In this one, dropped 32 points on 13 of 21 shooting. Hit the dagger of the game. Dagger step back three over one Jimmy Butler. He is certainly on one at this point, and he looks confident. He looked in control of the Bucks offense. I mean, dished out 8 dimes in this one. Has Kevin Porter Jr. just lost his starting spot for Milwaukee? Like, is Ryan Rollins already like looking that good, or does he need like a little bit more of a body of work before Doc Rivers makes a legitimate change to the starting lineup?
That's a good question. Knowing Doc, I think he'd probably keep the player that was there before injury, and he'll take his chances. But I think it might be a short hook. If he does have any leeway with Kevin Porter Jr., it probably isn't much. And I think he's just waiting for him to make a mistake so they can insert him full time into the starting lineup. But fantastic start to the season, fantastic performance, looks really good. And a performance like that certainly carries the team, and I know this is going to sound crazy. I've seen this from Giannis teams in the past. You remove Giannis, a player who has looked as good as any, except maybe with the exception of perhaps Victor Wembanyama. He's looked fantastic to start the season. He's been an MVP player for a number of years. But you take him out of this team, And for whatever reason, it seems like the group just acts much more egalitarianly. Like it just, the ball moves differently. There's a lot less. You're not kind of just ball watching as much as Giannis does what he does and everybody else kind of has to find their place. You see that in a win like tonight where a number of players stepped up. You got key contributions from guys like Rollins and everybody else. It was just a really group effort more than anything else. And I think that happens at times when you lose a superstar, especially one of the caliber of Giannis Antetokounmpo, who does so much for the Bucks team.
You know, I wasn't super bought into this, but like when we did our power rankings and stuff, but the start of their season and just like watching, you know, a few of their games, I kind of have to squint to see it a little bit, but like the way that they're built now, younger, more athletic guys that are maybe, you know, less ball dominant than in the past that they've had, guys who can just kind of fill a role and maybe are arguably a bit more complimentary of their true star in Giannis, right? A team that is not, yeah. I'm not going to be like this team is better than the team that they won the title with, but like just, I can kind of see it. Like if you squint a little bit, I can kind of see how this Bucks team could have a chance to make some noise in a kind of lackluster Eastern Conference this season. And when you have a guy like a Ryan Rollins who's playing out of his mind and is on a potentially a steal of a contract, they've got him for the next 3 years, $12 million over 3 years. We might turn around 2 months from now and say, holy crap, this is one of the best contracts in the entire NBA. Fantastic start to the season for him, and obviously we'll be tuned in to see whether or not KPJ loses his starting spot ultimately somewhere down the line. On the Warriors side of things, this is kind of an ugly loss for a Warriors team that was like at full power. This is a full strength Warriors team, and the thing that was the most like perplexing thing about the strategy in this one from Steve Kerr is Steph Curry is a guy who spent the better part of his entire career just putting opposing bigs in the torture chamber and torching them in drop coverage, right? Just burying 3 after 3 after 3. And yet, here goes Steve Kerr letting Al Horford just trot out there and play drop coverage against Ryan Rollins and just getting torched. I was very confused by it. And then the Warriors themselves, they just played sloppy. Like this was just sloppy basketball, careless turnovers late in the game. And I get it. They're like I don't know if they're the oldest team in the NBA. No, that's Clippers. Never mind. They're one of the older teams in the NBA.
Is it?
I thought it was the Clippers. I thought we did that. I thought somebody did like all the age rankings stuff. I thought it was the Clippers. Anyways, Warriors are like one of the oldest teams in the NBA, right? They've been there. They've done that. They've won X number of chips. They've got all these proven, star level play. But like, I don't think that this Warriors team has the same ability to maybe flip a switch the way that they have in years past, right? And like you can't come into a game against like a Bucks team like this, even without their star player, and underestimate them, because then you get an ugly loss like this one.
Well, that's what they did. And I think you would expect something different from a veteran group like Golden State. But it really did feel like they weren't prepared for this team and may have taken their foot off their gas prematurely, thinking, oh, no Giannis, no problem. And in fact, it was just who counted on Ryan Rollins being the player that he was. But maybe that's something they should have been a little bit better prepared for. But I think it ultimately boils down to a really poor 3-point shooting night. As they mentioned, it was a really sloppy game overall from Golden State and some poor shooting as well. They just looked a little out of sorts, and maybe it was just a matter of not being fully engaged. I think they still have the switch. Why? Because they've got Steph Curry, the most ignitable player in the NBA still, even at this stage in his career. He's such a difference maker. We saw that last week in the game, a game that you missed. But that night he was sensational. Had a monster fourth quarter against the Denver Nuggets, I recall correctly. And they just looked really, really solid because Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. And that's all the difference that you really need. Tonight he wasn't. Shot 4 of 10 from 3-point range and didn't get those contributions from anywhere else on the roster. Not really, not consistently enough. Too many players missing wide open looks. And that was the dagger for Golden State, aside from the phenomenal performances on the other side of the ball.
Coming up, the Magic snapped their 4-game losing streak by getting back to their defensive identity. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter, comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. But hey, maybe you want to keep things super simple. Just go take a look at the odds on favorites to win the title this season. You got the OKC Thunder favorites to repeat at plus 210. Right behind them, you have the Nuggets and Cavaliers both at plus 650. You got the Knicks at plus 1200. And then in fifth place, the Warriors at plus 1,500. So for all those odds and so much more, visit FanDuel.com. FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On NBA Game Night. Thanks so much for making Game Night your first listen each and every day. For your next listen, go check out Locked On Warriors to see what went wrong against the Bucks, or go check out Locked On Heat to see David crying about getting Wembeed. All these different things that you can tune into. A show for your favorite team all across the network. Let's get to our next game here, our third game of our 4-game slate on this evening. The Orlando Magic getting it done against the Charlotte Hornets, snapping their losing streak. Let's throw it out to Locked On Magic for more.
This is Philip Rossman Wright, the host of Locked On Magic. And I want everyone to just breathe a little bit. Breathing exercises are good because the Orlando Magic finally relieved some pressure, snapping a 4-game losing streak with a 123-107 victory over the Charlotte Hornets. We could talk about those 123 points, the 20 points from Anthony Black, the 29-9 from Paolo, the 21 from Franz, the 18 from Wendell Carter. So the offense was rolling, but this game was all about the Magic's defense, the thing that had struggled so much in the last 2 games and had all of us asking whether this team was facing an identity crisis. Orlando got back to basics. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, but they got back to basics. Deflections, steals, turnovers, contesting shots, rebounding for the most part, feeding that offense. We began to see this team come together and bring that vision that everyone had for this team, or that this coaching staff had for this team. There's still a lot of work to do. Let's not pretend otherwise. The Hornets turn the ball over a lot. They're not the cleanest team, even though their offense is very potent, and the Magic did a good job holding it down. But they got the job done. They got the win. They moved in the right direction, and we don't have to worry about another loss. Magic on to Washington on Saturday with a 123-107 win over the Charlotte Hornets.
David, right now, the Magic, even after this game, the solid defensive performance against the Hornets, 21st in the NBA defensively. A far cry from where they were as one of the top defensive teams last season. And, not to rain on Philip's parade here, but you take it with a grain of salt. It's the Charlotte Hornets that you put up a good defensive performance against. How concerned should people be with the Magic defense at this point? Do you trust that they have the ability to get back to where they were last year? What are you thinking about where they're at defensively to start this season? Is it just small sample size theater?
I tend to think so. Because the loss of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and replacing him with Desmond Bane shouldn't be substantial. That's substantial enough where you're going to completely overhaul your defensive identity. And I think the team in general was going into the start of the season recognizing we've got to put up more points because their offense was such a problem, and kind of relying that their defense would always be at a high level. That just hasn't been the case. Obviously, they've taken a step back in that regard, but I think they'll get it back. I think they'll eventually get back to that identity because that's just how that team is built. They're too good defensively. I think they will. They have the personnel. They understand what's at stake here. I think there'll be those moments there where it'll finally click. And by that point, the assumption is their offense will be at the same level or close to, so that they could at least try to win games in a much more convincing fashion than they did last year, where they were just basically smothering opponents. And I think we saw that tonight. I think, you were playing defense at a high level and your offense was rolling at a high level, and things seem to be clicking in all cylinders, at least for tonight. And it should go. I mean, look, they're going to face the Wizards, who we'll talk about shortly. They're going to face them next, as Philip said. And that's always a good recipe for trying to find a way to get your defense back on track.
Get a nice little pair of back-to-back tune-up games, if you will. Really quick, before we move on from this game and the Magic in particular, I want to. How are we feeling about Desmond Bane so far in a Magic jersey? Because he's had one good game where he dropped 24 against the 76ers, and he's had a handful of okay-ish games, and then only 9 points in this game, not great shooting. Is it just slow start for Desmond Bane? Because I feel like with the magnitude of that trade and how much the Magic gave up to acquire Desmond Bane, they were maybe expecting him to be able to putting up more than what he's doing right now. He's still providing floor spacing. Teams are still treating him as, the elite shooter that we know he can be. But where are your thoughts at on Desmond Bane to this point?
He's looked a little uncomfortable there. I think the rhythm isn't there just yet. I think the chemistry is a little off. Like, he just hasn't found a way to fit seamlessly alongside Paolo. And I think that's a big concern, is that they're not sure how to play off each other. Like, Bane looked really good in Memphis, getting into a comfortable rhythm there, playing off Ja Morant, or even replacing Morant when he was out due to injury as the top scorer. He had a good two-way chemistry with Jaren Jackson Jr. That just hasn't been the case so far in his short stint in Orlando. But again, I think they're good enough players where they'll be able to figure it out. It's just going to be some growing pains. And as far as if you're a Magic fan, the hope is that they'll figure it out midway through the season, so they'll continue to get better as they make a playoff push. Because I still think this team is very dangerous. They didn't take a step back from where they were last year when they were already looking so deadly. And they add a good player in Bane, who I think the move itself might have been a little overhyped, but it was still a good, solid addition to a team that did need some offensive firepower. And I think he's going to help in that regard.
Let's throw it out to Locked On Hornets really quick before we move on from this game. Let's get the other side of this one.
I'm Walker Mayo from Locked On Hornets, reporting live from Spectrum Center, where the Hornets just fell to the Magic 123-107. It's not going to be a good game plan for the Hornets when you get outscored in transition, you get outscored on the three-point line, and you only outscore your opponent by 4, 60-56 in points in the paint. Charles Lee had his team going under on screens with a struggling shooting Magic team coming in, something that they've, of course, been vulnerable with for the last decade, 20 years or so. Not tonight. Magic shot above 40% on decent volume, and we're playing bully ball. We hadn't seen the Hornets center rotation, I think, get dominated this year like many thought coming into the season. This is one where, despite Ryan Kalkbrenner just refusing to miss many buckets, was 8 of 9 from the field tonight, or 7 of 8 from the field, and he's shooting close to 90% overall on the season. Kalkbrenner has been a plus for this team, but you could see the size really bother Charlotte, whether it be out there on the perimeter or even on the inside where the Magic were bullying him a few times here and there. Defensively, Charles Lee spoke after the game saying that he wasn't pleased with his team's performance, that there were some times, some stretches where they did match that physicality and exceeded it with what Orlando had, but not enough.
Yeah, certainly not enough in this game. I will say the shout out to Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's been absurd to start the season. He is shooting exactly 90% from the floor, 27 of 30 to start the year. I don't know how this guy slid in the draft. I wanted him so badly in a Rockets jersey, and just wasn't in the cards for them to be able to pick him up. I think he's like a copy paste of young Brook Lopez. And if the three ball that he's been working on or worked on as a player is legitimate, hasn't taken a three yet, but if it's real, oh man, he's gonna be a really special player for Charlotte. So let's get to our final game of the night here, where the Thunder taking care of business against the Washington Wizards. Let's throw it out to Locked On Thunder for this one.
Thunder end up getting a 19-point win, but it wasn't as easy as the final score indicates. The Thunder were a back-and-forth game with Washington almost the entire way until the fourth quarter hit. With SGA on the bench, the Thunder went on their run. They started stacking stops, getting steals, getting fast break opportunities, the typical Thunder basketball. SGA, by the way, had 30 points through 3 quarters. Didn't have to take a single minute in the fourth frame as the Thunder cruised to this win in the final frame. But ultimately, this is much of the same from this whole Thunder season. They just so happen to be playing a worse team who could not keep it close and get the Thunder back into crunch time. Because the Thunder really didn't struggle in this game from a traditional standpoint. Like, yes, they struggled to convert on shots, but they were able to set them up very cleanly. Great shot quality, great ball movement, great wide open shots that just didn't fall. They're still struggling to shoot from three, but Isaiah Joe made a welcomed return. He was one of the only guys who could knock down a three in this game. He had 20 points in his season debut. The Thunder slowly but surely getting more healthy, slowly but surely getting back to normal as they have a blowout win in this game.
You know, David, it feels unfair that like the Thunder can just coast through a game like this, and then like their third stringers can bring it home for them. It's kind of nuts. Like this is by far the deepest team in the NBA, with the reigning MVP, with other young stars. Like, I don't even know what more to say about the like they again, a close game. They kind of, but it ultimately, it kind of just felt like a team playing with its food a little bit. Like when we talked about earlier about the Warriors not having the switch they can flip. This Thunder team has that. They can when SGA decides that he wants to lock in and take over a game, he can. Didn't need to do it in this game because they had Isaiah Joe and AJ Mitchell do it off the bench.
The bigger, yeah, you're missing an all-star, your second best player in J-Dub, and it doesn't really matter. You're still off to a great start to the season. That's kind of ridiculous. It does seem unfair that this team is as good as they've been. So, I mean, that Spurs Thunder West Coast Western Conference Finals looks like it's going to be a hell of a matchup. Sorry for the Rockets. I guess we were expecting more from their group, but it doesn't look like it's going to play out that way. I don't know. Is that a little premature, or do you think those two have clearly been the best teams in the West so far? Would you agree?
I think so. I also, I'm still, again, I won't make any snap judgments yet, although the impressive
overreact, Jackson, come on.
You know what? Fine. If we're overreacting, no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'd like to break the season up in 10-game chunks, right? Like that's the sweet spot for like a decent benchmark to see like what's real and what's not. That way you're not overreacting to like a crazy 2-game span where a team like shot the lights out of the ball or really struggled and had an off night or something like that. But the Spurs look legit and they're not even healthy yet. The Thunder are still legit and they're not healthy yet, right? These are two of the best teams at this current juncture in the entire NBA. I will say it's never happened before in NBA history that a player has won Sixth Man of the Year and Most Improved Player of the Year. At least when I searched earlier, maybe Google lied to me, but AJ Mitchell could be well on his way to doing that. He's not the favorite for most improved at this point, but he's only like plus 4,000. Like he's not far off from like entering that conversation. He's averaging 18 points a game right now off the bench, and he is the favorite to win Sixth Man of the Year. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I also wouldn't put it like, at what point do you have to consider AJ Mitchell for both of those awards if he continues up this level of production throughout the season and the Thunder do what they did last year and they're the best team in the NBA again?
Yeah, I mean, the most improved player, that's always been like a really good player who takes like a superstar or a star level leap. So that's been the way that the award has been defined largely over the last few seasons. I don't know that he's there yet. I mean, I'm covering a player like Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's been phenomenal to start the season, aside from tonight going up against Victor Wembanyama. But he was also a player that looked like he wouldn't be in the running for Sixth Man of the Year and Most Improved Player. But again, if we're taking that cautious approach that you said, let's wait a little bit longer to see if this kind of production levels up, especially once J-Dub returns to the lineup.
Let's throw it out to Locked On Wizards for the other half of this game really quickly.
The Washington Wizards fall to the OKC Thunder 127-108 tonight in Oklahoma City. This one was relatively close for a lot of the game, but it almost felt like the Wizards were behind by a lot more than they were for a lot of the game. It almost felt like OKC was playing with its food in a way, because the first 3 quarters OKC missed some pretty ample opportunities, weren't able to come through. Bilal Coulibaly came back for Washington tonight, and he was really, really effective, provided a nice spark on the defensive side of the basketball. He got the start instantly, put up 16 points, 8 rebounds, a couple of blocks, 3 of them in the first half alone. So Bilal comes back and provides that spark, but the Wizards just kind of run out of the gym in the fourth quarter. The turnover margin was bad today for Washington. 23 turnovers for the Wizards, just 6 for the Thunder. That is not a recipe for winning basketball. Wizards back in action against the Magic on Saturday. They look to get back on track then. This is Ben Strober, Locked On Wizards.
I really like Bilal Coulibaly, man. I just don't know what he's going to become. Like, I don't know how good he can ultimately become. I don't know that he's ever going to really be like your true like number one option, like floor raiser engine for a team. I just don't know if he has like the playmaking chops to really pull that off, or the on-ball creation reps. But like, he's just a good player, good two-way player. And every time I get to watch him play, I'm excited. Like he's a fun player to watch. So it's great having him back in there. The Cam Whitmore experience for the Wizards has been abysmal, like to say the least. Like Wizards fans are like 5 games into the season, and I'm seeing them like throw their hands up in the air, like we're sick of Cam Whitmore. And I'm like, he's got a lot of talent, but the kid's got a lot to figure out if he wants to make it as an NBA player.
Yeah, no doubt. There's good pieces there, but having covered a Rockets team that was really, really bad for a number of years, you know what that's like. You never know what direction these players could go in, and so at some point something has to click. Whether you get just the right player, or maybe in the case of Houston, the right coach that can kind of tie it all together. What would you say is the difference? Like, at what point did Houston go from the really abysmal team that they were without an identity to being a really good player? Was it a matter of adding key players over stretches, or was it the addition of Ime Udoka kind of changing the culture more than anything else? Because right now, Washington's been a really bad team for a long time, and I don't know that there is any clear path to them getting better anytime soon either.
It's both. Because the Rockets added Ime Udoka and Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks all in one offseason, and Jeff Green, underrated acquisition there, to instill that new culture, right? To turn the organization around. Washington's not ready for that just yet, but they're also no. I don't like what they're doing with this whole you're still starting Chris Middleton, you're starting CJ McCollum. I don't know, you don't need vets eating up 25-30 minutes a night from the reps these young guys could be getting. You're gonna be young and bad. You don't need a vet out there to hold the hands of the young guys. Just roll the ball out there and let them get the reps. I don't know, I feel like you don't want to do the Chicago Bulls thing of holding on to these vets well past their expiration date and taking away developmental reps from the young guys. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, and ultimately Middleton only played 20 minutes, CJ played 24 minutes, things like that. But at the end of the day, the Wizards probably have this year, 1, maybe 2 more years of acquiring their top end young talent. And then that's when you have to make the switch, and you got to be able to find, who do you want to be your long-term head coach? Can you get an upgrade, a coach that's actually going to bring in that accountability, establish a culture, get these young guys playing winning basketball? But it's not always as easy as it seems, because Charlotte thought they were doing that with Charles Lee when they brought him in, right? Charles Lee had a great resume going to Charlotte, and he hasn't been able to quite, turn around that organization the way that they probably hoped he would when they hired him. So, it's you got to have the right head coach, you got to have the right players bought into it, and you got to have the right mix of at least a couple veterans in there to be able to steer the young guys in the right direction. Hey, this is how you win. You've only known losing so far, buddy. Get ready to learn how to win, and this is what it takes to be a winner. So, right. With that, we want your thoughts on all the games we talked about in today's episode, your reactions to another monster Wembanyama game, the Rollinsanity experience for the Milwaukee Bucks, all of it. Give us your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But for David and myself, that's going to do it for our edition of Game Night. And until then, we'll catch you guys on our very next show of Game Night.